Hi everybody, it's Miranda with Multiplicity Crafts, and I am joining Courtney Kreeber today for a collaboration, and this is for her 25 Days of Christmas. Today we're going over non-traditional Christmas colors, and so for this first example I'm going to show you, you'll just need the distress inks in picked raspberry, mustard seed, and peacock feather, as well as an acrylic block. And you're just going to press the ink onto the acrylic block until you can see that some of it is transferred over. It's kind of hard to see on the acrylic block because it's kind of repellent, and so it just looks really clear. You can't really see it, but if you can put like a piece of white paper or something behind it, you can tell if your ink is transferring over. And so you just want to mush that on, and yes, mush, that's a professional word. And so once you have that on, you are going to need a water mister or like a little spritzer bottle, and you're going to spray that with a light mist of water. So you don't want to add too much water because it's going to dilute it too much. So just add one quick mist over the whole acrylic block, and that way you won't get too much. Then you'll just take your card base and turn your block over and just swipe that across, and that'll give you a nice rainbow look. It's kind of a pastel rainbow, more or less, and it just gives an abstract look. Now this example, I didn't do the greatest because I wasn't holding my cardstock down great, but on this very first example you can see the background. I did this one before I recorded, and this one turned out so much better. But I was just showing you the idea. And I added a few little snowflakes on there, and there you have it. Next idea is for kind of a rustic look or kind of a vintage looking card. I'm going to use ground espresso. This is just the little distress ink mini, and I'm going to go in and kind of distress the edge so it looks a little bit more vintage. You can see on the background there, I've just taken some background stamps and made my own background, used a sentiment in the front, and added some snowflakes. There's just a little strip of washi tape at the bottom, and that's all I did. Is super simple card. This would be good if you're mass producing. So you can see I'm just adding the distress ink on the corners. This is if you want to kind of showcase your sentiment and knock back some of those snowflakes on the corners. It almost kind of spotlights the sentiment and gives it more of a vintage look. So that's up to you. I almost kind of preferred it the way before I added this, but it's just up to personal preference as to what you prefer. So I just wanted to show you that you can add more and make it look a little bit more vintage if that's the look that you're going for. And so that's really all. It's a super simple color palette, but it gives you a nice vintage look, and I actually really like the way this turned out. So let's move on to the next card. This next one I am kind of calling a Quilted Mosaic card. It kind of almost looks like a quilt. So the way I did that, I just went through my scrap papers and I had them all cut down to card making size. That's usually the way I try to keep my scraps. And so if the scraps are smaller, I do different things, but that's for another time, another place. I do have another scrap video if you're interested. But anyway, I just picked out 3 coordinating colors, and I'm like, no, wait, I need a pattern. So I went back through and looked, and so I'm using the purple, the blue, and I'm going to use this kind of black and white sort of pattern and add that in. So I recommend to do 2 solids and a pattern. It just seems to work better with this technique. So all you want to do is just take your 3 papers and stack them together just like where they're all even, and then it's really easy. All you have to do is just get your scissors and just start cutting random shapes. I try to keep my shapes kind of like a triangle shape, but you can see on the example I've kind of used all different shapes. And so I'm just going to cut the corner off of these 3 sheets. So just pick which color you want to start with. So I'm going to start with the blue. And then I'm just going to take my card base and glue the little blue triangle onto the corner, and that'll get me started. This will be my starting point, and I'm thinking I'm going to leave a little bit of a border around it because it just kind of, I don't know, looks a little bit better, I think, if you don't just push them up next to each other. It kind of is almost like if you were tiling to leave like the space for the grout. I just think it looks a little bit better. So I'm spacing that down a little bit from the corner. And once I have that glued into place, then I'm ready to go back to my stack of 3 papers and cut some more. So I'm gathering up my 3 pieces again, just stacking those and just cutting another random shape. Again, I'm just going to go with kind of a triangular shape, you know, or something in that family, I guess you could say. And this will give me the perfect angle, which is going to go against the blue piece that I have in the corner. And that's how you get all your pieces to line up perfectly, is you just cut them at the angle, and I leave a little space, and you don't even have to worry about trying to put it together like a puzzle. It just completely matches. Your angles are spot on, and everything looks amazing. Now on my finished card, I didn't use these colors, obviously. I used kind of a neon theme. But if you noticed on the original card, I did do a little bit of faux stitching with a black ink pen, and that just made it look kind of more like a quilt. And then in the corner, I made like a little Christmas tree shape, and that kind of lended itself more to a Christmas card, even though we're in a bright neon color. Next up, I'm going to show you an example of some paper piecing I did on a card. This particular color palette is kind of more of what you would consider winter colors, but it's still non-traditional as far as that goes. You can see I've just cut the various pieces, stamped them on different colors of paper, and cut them out in order to achieve the paper piecing. I do have other paper piecing videos if you want to see more in depth how that's done, but I just wanted to show you, you just basically stamp the image off and then just cut the portion that you need. So you can see once I have this pretty little Julie Nutting doll all paper pieced together, I did go ahead and add a sentiment, and I just penciled in a little speech bubble. That's nothing fancy. I just kind of penciled it in, and I can outline that later with a black ink pen. But I decided that I'm going to go ahead and watercolor the rest of this in. I'm using this Prima Marketing Art Philosophy watercolor set. And the first color I'm going to lay down is for her skin tone. And so I'm going to use that top color, and it's a little bit orangey, but once I add in the rest of the background, it just seems to kind of, I don't know, it knocks back the oranginess. Is that a word? It knocks that back a little bit, because when you're just watercoloring on like stark white cardstock, everything looks so much brighter. And so once we add the rest of the colors, it'll be just fine. Now, I started off with this and I thought, oh, I'm going to do all this fancy shading. And I thought, no. If people are going to need to mass produce these kind of cards, that's going to be like way too much to have to do shading and everything. So I decided we're just going to block in color, and then I'm going to add just a very simple background. I'm going to go in with this kind of icy blue color. It just, to me, it looks cold and icy. So I'm going to go in with that, and I'm going to water that down quite a bit and just decide where I want my horizon line to be. So right about here somewhere, and I'm just going to lightly paint that in, and that way I can kind of see where I want it, and then I can darken it up later. And yes, professional me is a little bit off camera on that top corner. You'll forgive me for that. I apologize. So underneath where her feet are and where her body would be casting a shadow, I'm putting in a little bit more color, simply because we want that to look a little bit more realistic in the shadows. And then when I concentrate the color a little bit more, I can outline the rest of these little snow hills and little clusters of snow that I've added for her to stand on. So I'm going to speed the process of this up, because it's like watching paint dry. Exactly. Yes. We don't want to just sit through and watch me making little strokes. So I'm going to speed it up so you don't have to painstakingly watch me do this, but yet you can still see the process of what I'm doing, barring that top corner that I decided not to put on screen. Oh, there we go. Okay, I scoot it back down there. Okay. So anyway, we have the ice, the snow, adding a little bit more concentrated color again here and there underneath her feet. Now, I know better than to add a color next to a wet color, but despite that knowledge, I'm going to go in with this beautiful pink color and I'm going to add in the sky right next to the blue snowbank that I just painted. Not sure what I was thinking, but I think I was just trying to rush and get this painted, and I don't think I was focused on letting that paint dry first. But you'll do better than me on this, and you'll let your paint dry first. I'm just outlining my little girl doll image here with this really pretty fuchsia pink color, and then I'll add some water and kind of diffuse that out. And so that way it's not such a harsh line. I didn't really get the line around her blended as well as I wanted, but I'm adding some trees in the background, so it all works out in the end. So that's all that matters, right? So anyway, just be sure to not paint your little speech bubble because you want it to stand out in like a bright white color, so that way it won't blend into the background. For the trees, I'm going into this beautiful purple color. I was going to use green, and I'm like, we're doing non-traditional colors. So I went in with the purple, and I think it looks really nice because, you know, blue and pink make purple. So it just kind of worked with this color palette. So I'm just going to draw a straight line and just scribble in some leaves or branches, I guess you could say, and make some trees taller, some shorter. I've painted in my trees similar to this over the years when I've taken some art classes in the past. I usually would make my branches kind of face up a little bit more, but I did want my branches to kind of almost be in like a downward shape because of the, snow or ice or something weighing them down. Plus, it just kind of looks a little bit more natural for this kind of a tree. So it's really easy. You just draw the straight line and just scribble in the branches. It looks like, oh my goodness, I need to be an artist. You really don't. It's just very easy. We're not trying to duplicate Bob Ross here. We're just blocking in some color, making it look super, super cool and very artistic, right? So here is the finished card with the beautiful trees in and everything completely finished. Last but not least, you might remember I had showed these cards on another video. This was done with the Doodlebug Designs Winter Wonderland paper pack. And I did all of this with cardstock paper and just added my own accents, like white gel pen, sequins, things of that nature. So you can see how you can make easy, colorful cards in a different color palette with this idea. You can find a lot of other ideas with Courtney's video, so be sure to look down in the description box for the link to see what she's made with the non-traditional Christmas colors. I appreciate y'all watching. Have a great day.